Jill, you're an agent. You're on the front lines of working with American families and talking to them about their financial security. Are there special needs and questions and concerns that you hear from your women clients?
I do. I do hear things from women clients. Mainly it has to do with whether or not they are ready and prepared, whether or not they have given thought to the kinds of things they need to deal with in the future. And I think one of the things that has been coming up most recently is this worry about having to deal with children on one end and parents on another end with regard to kids coming back into the household, staying around a little bit longer, parents who are becoming ill, and these women being pulled on all sides.
We are the sandwich generation.
We certainly
it's
are.
a kind of a trite phrase, but many of us are experiencing it and living it with our millennial children and our aging parents. And we have new research from ACLI that says, far from conventional wisdom, women are actually very interested, keenly interested in learning more about financial issues and things they can do to help their family. Is that your experience?
It is my experience. I think the reason that's happening is the information is available to them. A couple of things I have noticed in the last few years. The Girl Scouts of America are doing financial literacy badges for young women. And what I find fascinating is some of my own clients come in who are the mothers of these girls, and they say, my daughter was working on this. Maybe we should talk about it. Maybe you should help get me up to speed.
So give me some real life examples now of how you would work with a female, and I'm sure they all vary because people have different starting points. So tell us some of your stories.
Yeah, Susan, I appreciate the fact that you point out the different starting point. There are some women that I have met with, in fact, just recently, I would say within the last 6 weeks, I had a woman come in who was over 60. And her first question to me was, I have not made any plans, is it too late? That's a really common question women will ask me, is it too late? First of all, the answer is it's never too late. What I like to do in my practice is I like to tell them, look, we'll spend an hour or so together just talking about the philosophy of money and how you came to think about money, how you feel about it. And by the time you leave, you'll be conversant in areas of investing, of savings, compound interest, and you'll feel really confident at a party. And you see them just release their shoulders. I think what happens is they realize that there's somebody there that wants them to do better, and they're not going to be judged in the process.
And they can do better.
They can do better, easily.
So when you say philosophy of money, what does that mean?
Well,
risk tolerance, or?
I don't even think it goes that far. I think it actually starts at a different core. When I was a young girl, we didn't have money in the household. My philosophy about money was really different. It was hearing my mother talk about making the rent payment. It was that type of thing. So there really wasn't a concept about saving. There was no money to save. So I think everybody has this different starting point in terms of their knowledge base of money. So that's an important thing. So the psychology of it is we expect a lot of things of women in terms of spending money, being good consumers. Make sure you buy expensive things so you look a certain way. And you have to sort of peel that back a little bit to find out where they are in this. You had asked me a question about some of my clients, and I had a young woman in her mid-20s. And we were talking about how she came to her financial philosophy. She said to me, my mother would give me $20. And I had to tell her how I was planning on spending it in the upcoming week. And $20 doesn't sound like much, but it gave her a platform to start a planning process. For the 60-year-old woman I met, she had never had anything like that. It's interesting.
It's interesting. So I have a daughter who's 22. What would you be telling her to help her build that kind of foundation of knowledge?
I would always start by asking, where are you on a confidence level with money? And I typically will sit back and say, if all bets were off and no one was in the room listening to you, and you had to choose between a 0 and a 10, where are you on your confidence level with money? And before they say anything, I say, before you answer, there's no wrong answer. And wherever you are is going to be okay, because we're going to make you comfortable. So you have to know where they think they are first. If she were to tell me she's at a 0, I would say, good for you, we've identified a starting point. If she said a 10, I'd say, good for you. We've identified that you have some confidence. Let's start building from there.
I think that's perfect, because I think all of us as women, we tend to be perfectionists about everything we do. How we look, how we're raising our children, how we're doing our jobs, whatever we have to do. And to feel unconfident in something we know is important can make us hesitant to ask questions.
Most definitely.
So you're empowering and affirming that they're being honest and want to get started.
I think in addition to that, it's not only having a lack of confidence, but not really having a platform where they can express the fact that they don't feel confident. And there are very few venues we've actually built for women to step out and say, wow, I don't know anything. I'm 55, I should know something. I'm 45, I should know something by now. And by the way, that's a very common phrase I hear in my office. They usually will respond by saying, I know I should know this by now. And I said, who told you that?
The put down.
Right, I know I should know this by now, and I say, that's perfect, because today you're going to know this.
Yeah. I love that.
Good.
I love that. Well, we have particular needs in retirement security as well, because I guess the good news is we live longer. That's just established by all the actuaries. If you have enough resources and have planned for it and can enjoy your retirement, then it's a good thing. But we know there's a wage gap out there. We all take time off at different points to take care of children or elderly parents, and that can impede our ability to be well prepared for retirement. How do you advise women on that?
That's really changed a lot too. When I think about retirement, there used to be a very prescriptive idea of what retirement looked like. And in fact, I just recently heard somebody say, I'm 65, I guess I should retire by now. My next question was, do you love what you do? I do. I said, well, what are you retiring to? So I think we have to sort of first look at all of the potential options for retirement. What does that really mean to people these days? So the fact that women are living longer certainly changes things, and they're going to have different expectations during that time period. Again, it sort of goes back to where are they in their level of knowledge. Let's start building that up first. Let's start praising women for the things they have been doing, and especially the things they've been doing right and doing well, and let's move them from there. Additionally, with regard to retirement, it is so vitally important that we help women understand that retirement can look like anything they want it to look like. For some, it would be taking care of their elderly parent. That's not always a bad thing. That could be one of the greatest joys of your life, to take care of your mother at the end of life. Let's prepare them so they can do that and have the time and the space in their lives, in their financial stability to make those things happen.
I'm having this conversation with you and thinking I'm going to call you myself for this kind of reassurance as well as just good knowledge. How do you think about that as a professional advisor? I think that's a critical part of the value you add when you're working with people, and you do it very, very well.
Thank you.
I think many women and men would benefit from having somebody like you in their life who cares about them.
It's very interesting that you phrase it this way, because the reason I went into this business is for this very thing. As I mentioned before, we did not have a lot growing up, and I don't say that in a sense of now let's go and build a business, but it made me fairly scrappy as an individual and quite a bit of an entrepreneur. But I was raised with a single mother, and I knew that had somebody pulled her aside and said, let me help you understand what you could be doing and what you are doing, things would have been very different for her. She's a wonderful woman and had a very successful life by her own right anyway. But that's a very personal driver for me. When a woman comes into me of any age, it is so important for me to understand exactly where they are in their life and where they feel a sense of loss or lack of ability. Because if we can identify those things, we can then rule the world, and I think it's time.
So it's a deeply personal commitment to you, and you approach it that way. Well, again, that's why I think you're so good and successful at what you do. So what do you think is the hardest thing for women to overcome when it comes to managing their money? What motivates them?
One of the hardest things, I come from a background in advertising and marketing. That was one of the first businesses I created as a young woman. I think we have such expectations of them from a consumer standpoint that it's very difficult for them to separate what they want and need from what someone else is telling them they want and need. I don't think this is very specific to women, but I'm deeply concerned about the fact that it is so pervasive for women. I've thought recently about some of the magazines, for example, at the end caps in stores. And there is so much more about finding the greatest recipe for an angel food cake than there is for finding the recipe for financial success. And I think when we can start changing that piece, women will start really paying attention.
But it's meeting women where they are.
Completely.
We're in the grocery store line at 10 o'clock at night, rushing home to do something else, miles to go before we sleep, and you see a magazine or something that sparks a question or interest. So rather than an angel food cake, it's how do I get in touch with a good financial advisor who can help me navigate all this?
And you just piqued my interest with something, because you said it's late at night and you're running into the grocery store, and you're probably right. It's mom who's running into the grocery store at 10 o'clock at night. And I just thought perhaps the articles that are on the front page are those very things that she can say, I can pull myself out of my world and go somewhere else and think about things like angel food cake. Yeah. I'd like them to think about something else. Yeah. A piece I didn't talk about, and this could relate to any of the comments we've had, financial security is freedom, and I can't think of anyone who needs freedom more than women who work hard, who struggle, or who find success at any point in their life. They need to feel the freedom of living, and having financial stability is the thing that allows them that.
The freedom of living. That's what the magazine cover says, and then it hooks you into to the steps you need to take.
And the thing is, they're all talking about it. They talk about not having time, not having the finances. These things. It's the sort of the desire of fulfilling the need, rather than I have time and ability and space, and now I can bring things into my life that are important to me.
In addition to running your business, helping women and men and families, you also are active in the public policy arena, just advocating for good policies that will support the kind of things we're talking about. How do we get women, and we're already talking about all the pressures on us and the lack of time, but is there a little space in a way we can convince women that it's not just your family financial security, it's everyone in your book club as well, and are there policies at the state level or at the federal level that we should be concerned about? How do we do that?
We can do that easily. It's community. When you talk about their children, they know it's not their own child. It's the children who come over for sleepovers. It's the kids who come over after school. It's the one she's driving on the field trip. So women are givers by nature, and they are so community-minded that when we go to the heart of that they can give to anyone. You're a woman, you know this. If you ask for help from a woman, she'll say yes. But if you ask her to do something for herself, she'll probably say, I'm not sure I have time for that.
I don't have time.
And that's fascinating to me. So I think when we're thinking about the security of a community, it changes the dynamic in their household, it changes the dynamic at the birthday party or on the soccer field, and nobody wants to elevate someone more than a woman beside another woman, and we need to really push that.
I like it. I think it'll work too. So what do you think we could do better as a mutual industry to engage women around their own family financial security or around financial advocacy?
We have to provide places to talk about this often. It's important that we provide venues where these conversations are happening, and they're happening in a fluid way. Not so much go to a workshop and learn how to handle your 401k. That's not very interesting, and that's not very time sensitive. Something more along the lines of doing it as a group, sort of the collective mind, that type of thing. And you had mentioned book clubs, and we were talking a little bit about some of the school programs, whether it be sports or whatnot. If they're learning through their children, they're learning. And I would think if we could bolster what's happening in our schools, elementary school, grade school, high school, for the young girls, this is not going to be a conversation we have to fight against. The mothers are going to learn by the fact that they're sitting next to their daughters, but then the daughters are going to have this information growing up, and they'll feel power for their life, and they'll be able to make better choices overall.
I love it. The mothers will learn for and through their children.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That makes it approachable.
Yeah. And motivating.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Susan. I appreciate it.
We appreciate your leadership. Thank you.